Welcome to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Students, today we are going to discuss about problems of third world countries. This program is for BA final year students. In this program, we are going to discuss about what are the third world countries and what are the conditions prevailed during in the third world countries after 1945, that is after the end of Second World War, and what are the developments which took place from 45 to till present day, and what are the socio-economic and political changes that have taken place in these third world countries. And we also discuss about the problems faced by the third world countries. First, let me tell you what are the third world countries. The countries of Africa, Asia and Latin America are grouped together, are called third world countries. And if you observe the modern world, right from the beginning of First World War to the Second World War, world is been always divided into power blocks. In First World War there were two blocks, and during the Second World War also there were two power blocks, and the fight was major. Almost all the countries joined in these blocks as a supporters of the superpowers. And after the end of Second World War, the sudden change took place, that suddenly USA and USSR, Russia emerged as a superpowers, and the whole world is divided into two superpower blocks. That is, one block is headed by America, which is a capitalist country, and the countries supportive to the America are grouped into this called the first world, and the second world is the socialist countries headed by USSR, and majority of the countries, most of the countries are joined in this socialist group, and the remaining countries who are underdeveloped or developing countries who have been under the colonial rule for past so many years have got independence, and suddenly they started asserting their independent and individual identity. This made them to form a separate group which is called the third world group, and the third world countries are mostly from the developing countries, and most of the countries are also suffered a lot in the hands of the colonial rulers, the European rulers. And after this colonial exploitation, after the prolonged fight, they got independence, and they got independent of their colonial rulers, masters, and started developing economically, socially and culturally. And the colonial exploitation is haunting them, but still they stood firm in deciding their destiny of their respective countries. And we have with us today as experts Professor V. Ramakrishna and V. Ramakrishna Reddy garu. Professor Ramakrishna, today we are going to discuss about third world countries. Now, when we see that emergence of third world countries, there is a past history, long history for them, and how these countries came together or grouped as an separate identity. Can you please explain this?
Yeah, you have rightly said in your introductory remarks that the third world countries comprised of the countries that became independent after the World War II, and also the first world you have explained consisting of mainly of the Western nations, developed nations. The second world again comprising of the countries of the socialist bloc, which of course today there is no socialist bloc, and therefore the second world countries don't exist, but still we call these countries the third world countries. There is a historical background to the emergence of these third world countries. Again, to borrow a point from what you said, the countries in three continents, Asia, Africa and Latin America, South America, which were under the colonial rule of, say for example, England. England was a major imperialist power or colonial power. Then France was next to England, a colonial power. Then there was Germany, Portugal, Spain, etc., Holland and so on and so forth. These countries ruled over a number of countries in these three continents. For example, India. India was ruled, as you know, by the British, say nearly for 2 centuries. Similarly, the countries in Africa and Latin America were also under different colonial powers. And by the time the Second World War broke out in 1939, by the time the Second World War coming to a close, very interesting developments took place. Number one, the traditional imperialist powers, for example, England got weakened. Germany, you know, was defeated in the Second World War, totally became very weak. France again was not in a position to hold on to its colonies. Portugal, Spain, less said the better, they were very weak countries. So, it was a writing on the wall. By the end of the Second World War, all these countries were becoming independent. What will happen to these countries? Where will they go? Which bloc they will join? Will they continue to be aligned with the earlier colonial powers, or will they join the new bloc that emerged, as you said, the Soviet bloc, the socialist bloc? So, I think the question that has to be discussed is that these countries which suffered under the colonial rule waged their national liberation struggles for years together, and once they became independent after the Second World War, for example, 1947, 1948, and the liberation of these countries in these continents continued till 1950s and sometimes even 1960s. So, these countries quite naturally, quite rightly in my opinion, wanted to become somewhat independent. I am not talking about the political freedom, independent from both the blocks,
Power blocks.
both the power blocks. So, they wanted to remain sort of independent from these two power blocks, and that is how, in my opinion, the third world countries, the nomenclature called the third world countries emerged. I think this is what I suppose you were trying to ask me to
Exactly,
explain.
sir. And when they are grouped together, like, you know, what were the conditions prevailed in these countries?
Yeah, I mean, this is again a continuation of what I was talking earlier. You know, Professor Reddy, if you look at the formation of the third world countries, for example, even before the independence was achieved by these countries, statesmen like Jawaharlal Nehru, for example, he was from 1935-36 onwards, he became a sort of a world figure, because he always was talking in terms of the international relations. I mean, Jawaharlal Nehru had just not a national vision, but an international wide world vision. For example, he went and participated in the Spanish War of Independence in Europe. He supported the Spanish War of Independence, and Dr. Sudharani, before 1947, even before we got our independence, Nehru convened a meeting of the Asian powers in Delhi. This is the real beginning of the third world countries movement, whatever you call. And when you ask me about the conditions that were existing in these third world countries, in these third world countries, say for example, India, then Ceylon, then Burma, okay. When India was divided, Pakistan, then when you go to Africa, countries like Somalia and Congo.
It was called the granary of
The granary of the grains and granary of Africa, which was supplying a lot of food grains to the other countries.
But later, surprisingly, there was so much of drought and you know,
Yeah.
terrible situations prevailed in Somalia. And what was the reason for this?
No, because you know, you take for example India. I mean, I always give this example because we are more concerned with India. India, when India was colonized by England in the 18th century, India was in a position to export to the other countries. India's agricultural production, India's artisanal production, industrial production was much more than even compared to countries like England before industrial revolution. Because if you look at the figures, the export and import figures, India was exporting more to Europe than it was importing from Europe, and therefore India became the sink of gold and silver. We got more of gold deposits and silver deposits. But as in the case of the African countries you were explaining earlier, what happened to the Indian agriculture? What happened to the Indian industry? Deindustrialization took place. Agriculture became very backward, and they did not bother to develop agriculture which was necessary to meet the needs of the people. In agriculture, for example, for Saturday, they introduced the commercialization of agriculture. They started producing only the cash crops, the commercial crops. The commercial crops like cotton, for example, sugarcane, for example, tobacco, for example. You know, these cash crops or commercial crops were necessary for their industrial evolution to produce their food. So, what happened? What were the conditions in these countries? The conditions were far from satisfactory because these countries were exploited and there was social backwardness, because in countries like India again the caste system was there, the religious divide was there, then culturally we were decadent, all our important cultural aspects were dominated by the foreign British culture, and we had population problem, and we did not have proper education. We means not only India, in the African countries, in the Latin American countries, you take any country for that. Similar situation more or less was prevailing in all these countries because of the naked exploitation of these countries by the colonial powers.
Professor Ramakrishna Reddy, as in continuation of what Professor Ramakrishna was told just now about we are not poor in our natural resources, we are rich in our natural resources, because India used to be a largest exporter of several goods since for ages, like since ancient India, ancient times. I mean, coming to the modern times, after the colonial rule got over, and what was the reason, how do you perceive this change in third world countries, that what was the reason for this underdevelopment or relapsing to the going to the poverty or underutilization of resources? What do you say about this?
Coming to the reasons for even though the third world countries like India and other countries, as you said, Somalia, etc., even though they are rich in natural resources like water, minerals, etc., but even then they are in deep poverty, and even agricultural production was also. In fact, it was observed that the crux or the paradox of the problem during the last 30 years in the underworld countries is that, especially in Africa, is that while the growth in population is about 20%, the growth in food production is only 18%. So, population is increasing beyond the growth rate of food production, and in this connection we can recall what one Malthus, an economist, has observed regarding this. When the rate of population is what you call crossing the rate of food production growth, then naturally those countries, they will certainly face what you call if they fail to control their growth rate of population by natural means, then naturally certain natural calamities or catastrophes will take place, like cholera, famine, and even war, etc., and then the population gets decimated. So, this is one the real situation. But why this situation has come? Coming to that problem, even though they are rich in natural resources, these natural resources were plundered by the colonial rulers when they were ruling these colonies, and they naturally tried to utilize these resources, these natural resources of the third world countries, only for improving and for consolidating and for strengthening their economies. As our Professor Ramakrishna was telling, even though India was rich in cotton manufacture, and even though at 1850, the Indian cloth products, they won acclaim in the London market, and they really received a lot of price. But naturally, the British colonials, they wanted to curb this Indian imports into Britain, and then naturally encourage the British manufacturers, and they have naturally what you call imposed heavy import duties on the Indian cloth imports, and then they have also at the same time took other measures to curb the production of cloth in India, especially this handloom, weaving and cotton. So, plundering of the natural resources by the colonial masters, that was one setback. And after independence also, these third world countries, due to financial reasons and due to lack of planning also, and as you said, especially in Africa, most of their economies are what you call subsistence economies. They were just even production also, agriculture production also,
the
subsistence for that means they were producing only to meet their local need, just local needs, and they were not really producing to the market. And nowadays when market economies are there, so this is also another factor. So what do you call earlier plundering of the natural resources by colonial masters, then what you call lack of financial resources, and also lack of what you call scientific knowledge, or the lack of advancement of scientific knowledge was also another reason why these third world countries were not able to really put their rich natural resources to their full potential.
Okay, sir, thank you. And coming to this thing, what we got the our countries, like third world countries, from the clutches of colonial rulers. So taking that country to ahead for the development, and several third world countries adopted the planning. So how this planning could remove the backwardness, or take them ahead of to meet the coming needs or the future needs of the respective countries?
Yes. In fact, as he said, even before independence also, the Indian leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, they had vision about planning and the need for planning, and India took up its first fair plan from 1951 itself, and even other third world countries in Africa and Latin America, they have also adopted this system of planning to bring about an all round development in the field of agriculture, industry and other fields. And coming to the effects of this planning, what happened, even though planning was adopted by the third world countries after they secured independence or freedom from the colonial masters, they have been able to definitely bring about growth in food production, then in the production of iron ore, steel, etc., and even electricity. Definitely there is an improvement.
The priorities have been changed from one plan to the another, keeping in the needs of the country.
Yes, in coming to India, in the first fair plan, in fact in all these economies of the third world countries, the agriculture formed the backbone.
Because agriculture being the crux of these third world countries.
The principal occupation of the majority of the people. Yeah. So naturally all these planners in the third world countries, they first concentrated on the development of agriculture, and in India also in the first fair plan, they have given top priority or the first priority for the development of agriculture. And in this they have also brought about land reform, this abolition of Zamindari system, and then what you call the construction of irrigation projects, hydel projects for electricity. So there was definitely as a result of these measures, there was definite increase in food production as well as in the production of basic materials like iron ore, steel, coal, etc. But even then these economies, they were not able to solve all the problems of the people and all the problems which the plans are expected to solve.
In this 50 years, if you
Yes,
observe,
during
like,
these 50 years,
what are the reasons you perceive that it is a reason for the failure of the planning
yes,
by these third world countries?
if we try to perceive the reasons why these third world countries, even after an independent existence of 50 years and planning, they were not able to solve their problems, their major problems, economic problems satisfactorily, the fundamental reasons are, the major reason is overpopulation. Overpopulation. Even though, as I told you just now, even though there is growth in food production, there is also growth in education, there is growth in steel production, there is growth in electricity, but population, as I told you in the beginning, population was increasing at a very higher rate. So, this increase in production was not able to meet the needs of this growing population. So, overpopulation is one of the factors why these countries were not able to really bring about satisfactory.
No, Professor Ramakrishna, what do you say about that?
Dr. Sudharani, while agreeing with Professor Reddy, but you can't really say because of the increase in population, you are not able to really solve these problems, because increase in population is one factor.
Yes, that is one of the reasons.
One of the reasons.
Population
See, for example, take India. See, in India today in 2006, more than 30%, nearly 35% of the population today are under the poverty line.
Yes.
Now, after 50 years of independence,
Yes.
how do you explain this? The land reforms were not properly implemented. The poverty in the country, the poor people, I mean, as you said, as Professor Reddy also very rightly said, it is primarily an agricultural country, and you have not distributed the land to the poor. I mean, till whatever land reforms you have carried out, they were very defective, and you all know that in Andhra Pradesh, in spite of the land reforms, they were not successful. And then you have produced more food, but what about the distribution? It is not the production, it is equitable distribution of the production. Whether this production is reaching all sections of the people, whether there is employment, and wrong priorities, corruption, and also the lack of political will, and you are not bothered
Exactly,
about
that is a major
the lack of
reason
political
for
will,
it.
and you are not bothered about the eradication of illiteracy.
Because still we are unable to meet the literacy, like 50% of the population is still illiterate.
Is still
so how do we
illiterate,
say that?
and without literacy,
Despite
without
the
education, how can you improve the country? And you have not empowered the poorer sections of the people, you have not empowered women in this country, you have not taken care of the problems of the Dalits, the Adivasis.
Because 20%, 16% comprise of Dalits, because only 1% of Dalits have the lands. Because it's not distributed.
So while agreeing with what Professor Reddy said, you cannot blame only the increase in population. This is what the general explanation is given. But when you go deeper into the issue, you have all these problems and you are not able to solve.
No, I
Not only in India.
No, I fully agree
But,
with what Professor Ramakrishna has said. Yes, besides the overpopulation, there are also other factors.
Several factors.
And to add to those, why the planners have not been able to bring about satisfactory results, we must also take note of other factors like what you call small size land holdings. In India, most of the 75 to 80% holdings are very small. They are marginal holdings, and naturally they are in such a position they are not able to invest on these inputs, these what you call these modern inputs like fertilizers or pesticides, etc. So this is also another reason, small size land holdings. And then sometimes what you call this frequent occurrence of natural calamities like droughts or heavy rains like that, and attack of these various pest diseases. So these factors also have to be taken. Of course, this illiteracy, and also as we were discussing, why the planners have not been able to really bring about welfare of the what you call
Because
majority
this is a 10th
community,
plan which we have been
majority community, and why 40% of the population, or around 30 crores of the population, they were below the poverty line, we should, the reason is that the planners, they were concentrating, what you call on heavy industries and projects, etc., and they were not really concentrating on what you call the schemes or the projects which will really benefit these common people, or who are
The
yes,
poorest
at the lower level, at the lower level.
Exactly.
And now we have the
One small thing I would like to, excuse me for interrupting. See, take the recent statement of Professor Amartya Sen, the Nobel laureate. He was saying the major problems of this country today are education and health. You are not taking care of these two. And education, people have been saying till recently, you are wasting by investing in education because it is only a social good. It does not produce any wealth. But it is a wrong argument. You invest more in education, you get a lot of feedback, and a lot of output also you get out of education.
Yeah.
Because education is the main thing, either science or technology or the other fields of education. So we have neglected it. And what about health?
Yeah, maternity mortality rates and anemic cases are more among women.
Yeah,
and children deaths, infant
Childbirth deaths are very many in this, and every 5 children in this country, 1 child is dying. And how can you, I mean, in spite of all this, you are not able to develop this country because the planning is good, but the implementation in the planning and the priorities in the planning and whatever production today, we have got excellent food stocks in this country. I mean, sufficient food stocks in this country. You know that all the FCI godowns are full of wheat stocks, but there are starvation deaths and people are committing suicides. So on one side you have plenty and on the other side you have poverty. So these two things have to be properly balanced, in my opinion, in the third world countries.
Exactly. Thanks for discussing all these
Thank
problems.
you. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting discussion.